break, don't we? So well done, well done. You're almost there. Many of you in the room, I can see from some of the people I can see coming in. One amazing Helen Van Riel has just flown into the room all the way from the United States of America. She's already on her summer holidays. Well done. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Of course, they'll be going back sooner than we do, but nice. It's just nice to think about people in that sweet space of calming and rethinking things and just embracing the nature of summer holidays and that lovely time that we get. And we are lucky, aren't we, to get those summer holidays every year they come around. Sometimes I must say I take it a little bit for granted. I do take it a little bit for granted. I kind of get used to having them, and it's only when I think about, I guess, when I have a low point at some point in the year and I think, oh, maybe I could do without the stress, or maybe I should think about shifting job or something. And I'd say two things mainly keep me in the job in those tricky times. One of them is the social kind of energy part of teaching, where you speak to loads of people every day, you see them grow, you see them change, you interact with a number of different people with all these really different personalities, really, it's the variation in the job is huge, and I love that. But the other one, if I'm honest, is the holidays. And I think going forward, even with my little boy, I think I'll be so fortunate to have a large chunk of those holidays at the same time he's having holidays and things like that. So, if you are feeling a bit at your wit's end at this time of year, a little bit like the candle is burning out, do remind yourselves this time next week, hopefully, or maybe this time in 2 weeks, or whenever your holidays begin, you can wind it down. You tell you what I did yesterday. I was at a barbecue yesterday, right? And it was boiling, as I'm sure it was the case for most people if you're in the UK. So at barbecue, popping on some sunscreen, right? Some sunscreen. I'm not American. Sun cream, sun protection, sun lotion. I was popping on some of that white sun stuff, and the smell of it, right? The smell of it. It's Nivea. I don't know what kind of name product it is, but the brand is Nivea. And when you put it on, it smells like a summer holiday. Because otherwise, I only really put sun cream on when I'm on holiday. So at this barbecue yesterday in the middle of Romford, I was having like emotional muscle memory flashbacks to Corfu and to Greece and Mexico. And I felt really chilled. It actually had a really strong effect on me. And I started to think, I wonder if how much I could keep that going. If I just put sun cream on every morning, maybe I'd just like really have that muscle memory kick in and I just feel a little bit like I'm on holiday every day. So that's my advice to you guys. If you haven't done it yet this year, or you haven't done it very much, get some scented sun cream or Nivea sun cream, or I don't know what the deal is with it, but it's in a big blue bottle, a yellow cap. Put it on, you'll feel like you're on holiday because it smells like a holiday, right? The aroma is a very powerful power. I guess aromatherapy, isn't it? I guess that's what happened. Unintentional aromatherapy yesterday at a barbecue in Romford. Felt like I was on a beach somewhere, just because of the smell of it. So if you're out in the sun or not, I recommend, right, even if you're staying in, you have no reason to test it out, right? Just for me, just to what's the word? Entertain the thought. Pop on some sunscreen, some sun cream, some sun lotion. I can almost promise you it will do wonders for your mental health. It'll do wonders for your mental health. So yeah, that was a nice experience yesterday. I want to share that with you. I want you all to enjoy that little treat. You can thank me later, guys. You're on Teachers Talk Radio. Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. I'm Graham Columb. I always host the Sunday brunch unless something crazy happens. And actually, I'll just so you know, as I'm sure my many fans are listening in, sweating over the thought that I might not be here over summer. I will be. Don't worry, guys. Calm it down, sit down, relax, pop that kettle back on. We are running through the summer on Teachers Talk Radio, and I'm curious as to how that's going to look. I'm wondering how the viewer numbers will be, or listener numbers, and all of that will be. I hope that you come with me on the crazy ride through Sunday brunches in the summer. It's a nice way to communicate, right? And it's probably time to address the myth that teachers don't vanish when schools aren't open. We exist in the other times as well, and so I'll be talking you through your summer holidays on Sundays from 11 till 12:30, as is my time on Teachers Talk Radio, and I love it. I must say, Sunday brunch is what I'm all about. So. Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, the interactive teachers talking radio podcast show thing. Can you tell? I was flying around this morning. I'm feeling that energy. I need to step it down a notch, right? I've been flying around too much, and I think I'm bringing a chaotic energy to the radio waves today. So, well, where was I? Where was I? We're talking end of year today, just so you know, if you've just come into the room, you're wondering what on earth is on the docket today? What are we talking about? We are talking about the end of year traditions, the end of year routines that we have. I want to hear about your schools. I would love to hear about what you do at this time of year. Is a lot asked for you? Are you on the wind down yet? Or are you really kind of used up and burnt out as you head towards your last days in school of a summer term? I know it's all different for all of us. I know some people you'll be out buying lots of gifts for your classes. Some of you might have schools where they have a rule that you cannot get gifts for your classes. Some of you might be making handmade gifts or doing the old, buying a bunch of stuff from Tesco's or wherever and then wrapping it in cellophane with a bow. So it's a little bit handmade and it's a little bit shop bought as well. Kids love it either way. The kids love it. But I would love to hear from you guys. Perhaps some of you listeners have a controversial stance when it comes to gift giving at the end of the year. Perhaps you don't really like the idea of gift giving. It certainly opens up a little bit of competition, doesn't it, between teachers, and it can get a little bit like there's a little bit of one-upmanship comes up when it comes to gift getting and signing off your classes. I've been in some situations in the past, previous schools and things like that, where it can be a bit awkward on the last day because it almost becomes which teacher is making a bigger show of their class and which one's showing them that they love their class the most and making their class laugh the most and stuff like this. It's all a bit uncomfortable, but it certainly goes on. It's certainly something that goes on in the world of teaching. And so I wonder what your experience is of the end of term. Maybe it's your first end of term. Maybe you're an NQT. Congratulations to you too. You've made it to the end of the year. And, maybe you're a bit anxious about what it's going to look like as you head towards the end of the year. Maybe you don't know how to wind down with your class, or you're anxious about doing it wrong and signing them off on the wrong note. Stay tuned. We're going to talk it through. Hopefully, I'm going to be hearing lots from you guys too, and you can share with me your experience, your advice, your thoughts, your controversies, your issues around the end of year in schools. I'm a year six primary school teacher, for those of you that don't know. So a lot of things I'm talking about will be in through the contextual sunglasses, pardon the summer pun, of primary school, upper primary school. But of course, I love to hear about secondary schools and colleges and universities and infants, foundation level, all of that. I want to hear how it goes, and how you've mastered it. Some experienced teachers out there, I bet, have their routines down for this time of year. So that's what we're talking about, guys. That's what we're talking about. As usual, we're going to spend the first period talking through some of the current affairs in the world, talking about what's been going on outside of the idea of the end of year. What else is going on? We'll talk through that. And then at about past, we will then move with speed into our main topic of the end of year. We're going to pick that apart, think about it. And then as we get up to the hour of 12 and we move into our afternoons here in the UK, we will have Graham's Shame, my own little feature I like to do every week on the Sunday brunch. And then we finish off with a different angle on the topic of the end of the year. So here we are, Teachers Talk Radio. Welcome, guys. Before we go crazy, let's get into the current affairs. No actual affairs in the current affairs this week, I'm glad to say. Little reference from Matt Hancock there. Still thinking of you, Matt. Still thinking that you are awful. Anyway, we are, yes, in the current affairs of the world today. COVID is, the restrictions are easing, aren't they? How are we feeling about that today, guys? Restrictions are easing tomorrow. Tomorrow is July 19th. That is the day. I'm not going to call it Freedom Day. I don't like that. I think it's really lame when they call it Freedom Day. A lot of people will not be free of COVID tomorrow. A lot of people will still be suffering with that tomorrow. So, yes, hold on. Is this hot off the press? Khalil Rouse, fellow host and wonderful guy in general, has just commented, Boris and Rishi have U-turned, and I'm anxious. That means that the restrictions are not easing tomorrow. Tell me it isn't true. Khalil says, hot off the press, yes. Does this mean, oh no, not that much. Okay, thank God. So restrictions are still expected to ease tomorrow, I hope. Khalil is He's not my usual news guy, but he's coming in. It feels like he's flown into the press office, right, with a docket in hand, with a panicked new rush of news. Something has been U-turned by Boris and Rishi, and I'm not one to shy away from breaking news. So Khalil has left me with I. What else does he say? They were planning to not isolate initially. Okay, all right. So yeah, I saw this story this morning that Sad. Hold on, I got to get the name right. Sajid David. Sorry if I've mispronounced that name. He is our current health secretary after Matt Hancock did a runner, as he became rather famous for in the last little while. He did a runner. Sajid David is now there. However, he unfortunately, I think he's tested positive for COVID, and so Boris and Rishi, who are also obviously Prime Minister, and I forget Rishi's title, but all very high up. Oh no, Rogers is saying, "Who is David?" That's his surname, isn't it? Is it David? Sajid David? It's spelt like David. And I taught a kid once his surname was just David. So, oh, okay. All right. I'm just mispronouncing. All right, Tom. Tom is getting on his high horse now, mocking me for mispronouncing. Look, this was breaking news. Khalil flew into the office with his docket, hot off the press, flaming hot news. I don't have the names to hand here. I didn't know I was going to be talking about the Sajid Javid, Yavid. I don't know. I feel very embarrassed right now. This is live radio, guys. Welcome to Teachers Talk Radio, where Graham Columb embarrasses himself regularly. Where everyone's rushing in with it. The thing is, guys, right? Typing the name right doesn't help because I still have to try and pronounce it. I appreciate your heroism and the correction because it is right to correct. But yeah, there's Graham Shame taken care of. You're right, Sobia. Yes, I don't know how to pronounce the name. I'm very embarrassed now that I can't pronounce the name. I really thought it was David. I really thought it was David for the longest time. So, oh man, man alive. Should have Googled it. Should have Googled. You know what? I should get one of these pronouncing things to just. Now we got more variations on the name coming in. Dajid, Savid. I'm sorry. I feel very ignorant, to not know that. Alas, let's move on. He tested positive, right? The current health secretary tested positive for COVID. And Rishi and Boris, so they were in contact with him. And so traditionally, as we all know, and we've all suffered, if you've been in contact with someone, you know what that means. You're in isolation. You are off to be isolated for 10 days at least from the first point of contact. However, what do you know? Old Boris and Rishi are on they're trying out a new kick. They're going to try the kick, which means they just test every day and carry on as normal. Well, why didn't we get that chance? Why do they hold it for Boris? Just wait for the Prime Minister and then we'll make up a new rule. When literally everybody else in the country has to do anything, you all follow one rule. Oh, it's that guy who's famous for not following the rules he makes. Let's change the rules for him. Lordy Lord! Why is this the world we live in? People. Boris, all you have to do is isolate. We've all been doing it. My head teacher had to do it a couple of weeks ago. She was gone for a week because she was in contact with somebody who was positive. She wasn't positive herself, but she was positive, so she isolated. Boris, don't worry about it. You crack on as normal, mate. Doesn't matter, does it? Because you're Boris flipping Johnson. How do you feel about that? Would anybody like to call in and just have a rant? I will allow you the platform unless you swear, in which case I'll cut you off harshly and suddenly. If you wish to call in, right, and just have a rant on Boris's exclusive rules for himself, you are more than entitled to call in and have that rant. Sometimes it's better coming from you guys because, I'm the host. I got a platform. I'm privileged enough to be here weekly. So I try and hold back on my personal stance sometimes, maybe occasionally. So this is Teachers Talk Radio, where you can call in live and share your thoughts. So if you have thoughts on Boris and Rishi's little rule change there after you have inevitably gone through all the stress of your own rules over the last while, feel free to call in and share your thoughts on that. Yeah, an interesting one. Rules not being followed. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds all too familiar. But we have to ask ourselves, we're the public, right? We voted for these guys. I didn't personally, but we as a collective voted for them. So it's down to us. they're making up rules for themselves. They're not following. They're making up rules for us, and they're not following them. What are we going to do about it? Because it's on us, isn't it? We're the people who vote for them. We're the voice. We're the commoners. We're the people. Um, and most of us will roll our eyes and move on. So if that's what we choose to do, that's what we choose to do. But it is interesting, I think, when we kind of all go, oh, they have one set of rules for them and one for everybody else, and then we all just kind of crack on. I wonder at what point, what would be your breaking point, guys? This is totally off topic, not what I was expecting to talk about today. But I wonder what point would you go, enough is enough? What point would you start protesting outside Parliament, or cutting off your striking from your work, or deciding I won't stand for this anymore? Because with Matt Hancock a couple of weeks ago, that was a big. He's not following the rules he's been telling us all to follow. Now we got Boris and Rishi not following the rules that they've been telling us all to follow. It's clear as day, isn't it? It couldn't be clearer. We've had enough scandals. We've had enough lights shone on the truth of these people's mindset, but we are allowing it right now. So what's your thoughts? What do you think? What should we do? Maybe we just got to leave it and crack on. Maybe there are bigger fish to fry, and we just accept that that's the nature of politics right now, and it's systemic, and it doesn't look like it's getting addressed. Maybe it's down to us to address it. Who knows? Sorry, we're getting very political, unexpectedly political. Today was supposed to be a wind down. Summer's come in. Let's talk about our end of year stuff, and here we are. But I'm not. I won't apologize for it. Like, this is. I wasn't the person who decided to change the rules, Boris. All right, I know you're listening, Boris. I know you're a Teachers Talk Radio fan, especially on the Sunday brunch on Sunday. He's always on. He's one of those coded names on Podbean. We can see a list of the people who are coming in to listen, but every now and again you get coded names like VWYX69X92N8F9, and that I can almost promise you is Boris and Rishi sat together with a cup of tea on their Sunday brunch listening to the tones of Graham Column. No, I'm kidding. Of course, they're not. So, alas, that's what's going on in the world, isn't it? That's what's going on. Let's see what else is going on in the world. So, COVID is easing. Tomorrow is what some people dub Freedom Day. I will not call it that because I know that many people will not be free tomorrow. Many people will continue isolating. Many people are still suffering from COVID, unfortunately. However, credit where it's due. Thanks to the vaccine, deaths are way, way, way down. Any death is awful. Every time I look at low death figures, I still think that's 41 families who are having to go through a terrible thing, and friends and people within extended communities. It's awful. But I'm relieved that it's not up in the hundreds and thousands like it has been previously. And so suffering from COVID as a flu-like illness, certainly is something I can accept more easily than it being an absolute deadly killer as it has been in the past. The vaccine, of course, makes us more kind of ready to combat COVID, and I always think that's worth pointing out. Again, this week on Twitter, I saw a lot of people seeming surprised that vaccinated people caught COVID, and almost playing into the conspiracy of the vaccine, saying, well, why are people still getting COVID if they're vaccinated? What does it mean? Well, actually, a vaccine is not to stop catching something. It's actually just to get your body used to it, so that when you do catch it out in the wild, the symptoms are not as bad. So don't worry if you are hearing of vaccinated people catching COVID. That's not surprising. That's not against what we expected. That is totally normal. It's simply thought that they will cope with COVID better. The symptoms won't be as bad if they've been vaccinated. So it's okay. Don't panic. Graham's here for you on the Sunday brunch. So the numbers are still going up, though. The numbers aren't looking great. But tomorrow things are easing. I got my email from Costa a few days ago saying no longer have to wear face masks. They're fitting more people in their stores. Things are getting back to normal. I was in the cinema last weekend. Loved it. Thank you, Marvel, for Black Widow. That was an amazing movie, which I really enjoyed. But in the distancing version of the cinema, I have to say, and this was just last weekend, it was a matter of days ago, I was really relieved to have 2 chairs to my left and 2 chairs to my wife's right. So anybody who was in the cinema screening had 2 chairs either side of them. And it was really it made a difference to me. And if there weren't 2 chairs either side, I probably would not have felt as comfortable, and I'd rethink going. So I wonder, how do you feel about potentially going into a cinema now where you're sat beside someone as normal, a stranger? How do you feel about going to Costa where somebody might be sat right behind you or right beside you who's a stranger, maybe with a cold, maybe with a cough? How do you feel about that? Do you feel anxious about it? Do you feel okay? Do you think, all right, vaccine's got my back, it's okay, we'll crack on? Or is it a little bit of a point of anxiety? I'm not too sure myself. I have to say, when I'm in town, I don't think too much about obviously we all keep our general distance as it is, and I'm not one for breaking that knowingly, but on the same front, if I pass close to someone, I don't kind of have an internal meltdown of it. And I'm somewhat vulnerable. I have some things that that meant I got a vaccine early, so I could be a big worrier about it. But generally, I think if we're mindful of each other, it's okay. I just hope people continue to be quite mindful of each other. It's only a little odd that it's becoming people's responsibility rather than rules in place. That's the real movement, isn't it? It's not that people have to sit together, people are going to be forcibly made to sit together, but now it's going to be choice, and you don't really have a leg to stand on if you don't like people being close to you and you want them to move away. So that's going to be an interesting one. I wonder if we'll have more kind of incidents and altercations between people as people basically set different rules for themselves and different levels of comfortability. But then again, we had that before. Like I was in town a couple of weeks ago, and people passed right by me then, or really close to me in queues then. And it wasn't like anybody came and told them those aren't the rules. I just felt uncomfortable with it and moved on. So I imagine it might be somewhat similar as it was. I think many people are going to want to keep their distance anyway, and so will probably try to give themselves space where they can. But what about when that's not possible? What about when you turn around with a tray of food in a food place and there's simply not a table far away from others? You just have to sit by someone else, don't you? And how do you feel about that? Do you think it's too soon? Do you think the numbers are still alarming, even though the death numbers are way down? You know, what do you think? What do you think? I'm just going to take a momentary break, right? Because I'm suffering somewhat from a little cold and I don't want to sneeze on the air. Let's come back to this in a mo. All right, all right, all right. I think we're safe. Sorry, I was just becoming hyper aware of like nose sounds, and although hopefully you guys didn't hear them anyway, I get a bit uncomfortable, and I don't want my listeners being uncomfortable with that. That's horrific. So yes, sorry about that. We're back. We're back in the room. FOD. I think that is our wonderful Freya. Says I think we have a long way to go. Now, I'd love you to elaborate on that a little bit, Freya, and tell me what you mean exactly by that in terms of obviously the people catching COVID is absolutely not going down, is it? It's coming up to similar peaks that it was in January, which is really quite jaw dropping. When I saw some graphs of it, I did have a little look at the stats this morning, the long term stats, the short term stats, the today stats, and it was all rather alarming. And like I say, the peak is reaching a similar peak to that in January, which was really a horrific and unacceptable peak. And yet, tomorrow is apparently Freedom Day, where we are then going to get rid of all of the forced rules. Um, but death numbers are still way down. So I don't know. When you say I think we have a long way to go, Freya, I wonder what you mean in terms of do we need deaths to get down to zero? Obviously that would be a wonderful goal, but is it realistic? We know that people die from the flu still, and yet that's something that we've kind of I say live with. That's a very privileged way to say that, isn't it? But you know what I mean. We exist alongside it at the moment. So I'd love to hear more on what you think about that. What to just articulate what you mean by having a long way to go. What does that mean to you, and what's the goal, maybe rather than the problems, which I know we're all aware of. What's the goal? What would be your point where you'd be happy to get back to some kind of normality? Because that's the tricky thing. There's always going to be it might always be around, maybe it won't always be around. There are some illnesses and viruses that have actually been killed off and they stop at a certain point. Do you think that's possible with COVID, or do you think we have to live with it at some point? And if so, how could that go? Something to think about. This is Teachers Talk Radio. It's an interactive radio podcast. So if you are listening on the Podbean app, right, you can interact with me. You can drop comments, as Freya did a moment ago. You can call in using a round grey icon. You just click that and it will ask you to connect to the studio, and you can share your thoughts with me. If you have thoughts on Rishi and Boris making up the rules for themselves, that's my own. I kind of extrapolating that they haven't necessarily made up the rules for themselves. The way it's being touted is they're trialing a new kind of way of combating with contact. Um, you know, let me think. What do you think about the COVID rules easing? If you want to talk about that, you can call in and talk live. Of course, the Euros ended last week with some disappointment, of course, for many people in England. However, I'm not talking about disappointment with the football. I think we should be very proud of how we got on with the football. I think to get to a final against Italy and take it all the way through full time, all the way through extra time, all into penalties, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And I do not see that as a disappointing result whatsoever. The disappointment, of course, lies with the yobs and the domestic violence and the racism that has come from the event and that's really shone a light on. It was bad, guys. It was really, really bad. And the videos going around YouTube, people getting in fights, people breaking into Wembley, the racist comments to Marcus Rashford and Saka, and the players who took penalties and who took part, just really horrifying stuff. Of course, to counter that, there has been the lovely messages of support, and there was the Marcus Rashford mural, which was absolutely covered in support over racist vandalism that was initially put over the mural. So there is light to combat darkness, which is good, but it has shone a light on some pretty grim parts of the country, some pretty grim people, perhaps communities in a sense. What does that mean to you? It's a concern, isn't it? For me, it kind of raised an element of, where are these people? I am so removed from this area. Like, I did not realize that this type of lifestyle, this type of view was so prevalent. I know there are racists in the world. I know there will always, well, not hopefully not always, but I know that currently, anywhere you go, there will be some form of racism under the surface and people with awful, abhorrent views. However, it was the confidence behind it that shocked me, and the number of incidents that shocked me, and the kind of people just seem so comfortable saying certain things, putting them out on Twitter as if it's up there with any other viewpoint. It just shocked me, the confidence behind them. I know a lot of people won't be shocked by it. People who've had further experience of racism, will probably see this as, yep, this is the country we live in. Isn't it a shame? But for me, I've become aware of that kind of bubble effect, as I know, we've spoken about some weeks ago about the bubbles we live in social media. But it is more so, where are these people and why am I so not exposed to them? How are these communities allowed to go that way? And I guess most importantly, is anyone ever going to do anything about it? Because there's a worry in me that seems like it's been okay. That's how it is, and we move on. Wait for the next, the World Cup next year. The booing of the national anthem was just allowed to go. No one kind of stepped in, or people weren't arrested that I'm aware of. There was no lines drawn or any penalties handed out, and no pun intended. Um, it bothers me how it just seems to become, oh, it's a problem with football. It is what it is. Let's crack on. I hope that people are somewhere behind the scenes are working on solutions and addressing these problems for what they are. It's a worry. And like I said, the domestic violence, there was higher percentages of domestic violence when we lose compared to if we win. But either way, still a lot of domestic violence, and just, it's grim. It's grim. But like I say, I find myself almost shielded, or kind of in this little bubble of my own making, where I live in this perfect little world and I don't realize this stuff goes on. And I do to some extent, but it's opened my eyes, and it has concerned me somewhat to see the standards that are in some parts of this country and in some areas, some people. I don't mean communities as in geographical communities. I mean, this corner of this football club. Do you know what I mean? Like the communities in terms of, it might be an online community, it might be a community of people who know each other. I don't know, but I don't mean communities just as in geographical communities. I don't want to say certain parts of the country are worse than others. I absolutely don't believe that. But it's the way. Like I say, it shocked me. So another thing to talk about, if you have a viewpoint on it, if you want to share a view, feel free to call in. We are just gone past 11:30, which means it's time for the news. It's time for a little word from our advertisers, and then we're going to get into our main topic, which is the end of the school year. How do you approach your end of the school year? I have a ton of questions for you. I'd love to hear your answers, so stay tuned. Let's hear what's going on in the news these days and hear from some of our advertisers on the wonderful Teachers Talk Radio. Remember to get on the Podbean app if you wish to interact. I hope to hear from you all in a mo. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke.
This is your weekend Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke. The leader of the Association of School and College Leaders has warned that children will be kept off school in the final days of term to avoid having to self-isolate during the summer holidays. Jeff Barton said that parents should send their children to school in the last days of the summer term, despite the potential for self-isolation to interfere with family holidays. More than 830,000 children were out of school last week for COVID-related reasons, the highest figure since schools returned to face-to-face learning on the 8th of March. The retailer School Uniform Direct has told customers to order soon because of COVID-related production and transport delays. Disruption in overseas factories, a shortage of shipping containers, and the impact of Brexit has led the clothing firm to experience major production interruptions. While School Uniform Direct placed orders for this year's back-to-school season as far back as last autumn, 30% of deliveries are yet to arrive on time. Matthew Easter, co-chair of the Schoolwear Association, said that the industry should be able to clothe children as normal in time for the new school year. A Conservative MP was reportedly asked to leave a secondary school question and answer session after claiming that the Black Lives Matter movement was a Marxist idea. Jackie Doyle-Price, MP for Thurrock, was said to have caused an uproar when she refused to support Black Lives Matter. The incident, which according to a parent took place during a school assembly, led to the students being sent back to their room. Around half of the children at the school are believed to be from a black background. That was your weekend Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsier puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using the discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introducing the Leadership Masterclass series by Diana Osagi. Learn how to ditch your fears and develop your leadership confidence. How to deal with difficult colleagues. How to thrive when you lead in a challenging environment. And how to get colleagues to buy into your vision. Join Diana for her online leadership masterclasses starting on the 10th of July and running all the way through the summer. These sessions are the perfect way to prepare and refresh for the next academic year and beyond. Book your place at courageousleadership.co.uk/events now. The first 50 leaders to sign up get an additional free mini coaching session with Diana herself. Don't miss this. Courageous Leadership Masterclasses at courageousleadership.co.uk/events. So there we are, guys. There we are. We're going to get into our main topic now, where we're talking about the end of year traditions and standards in schools across the world, across the UK, across wherever you're listening from. I want to hear how the end of year goes for you, or how it has gone for you. There's a lot to talk about. Although, before I do, I must say that news that we had, obviously our Teachers Talk Radio news team put together new news regularly for all of us to listen to and hear about, to understand how teaching is going on in the world. Little shout out to firstly, Tom Hopkins Burke was doing the newsreading there. That was a throwback to the old days. He was our original newsreader right at the start of Teachers Talk Radio back in February. And good to hear him back on the air there. He has his own show now on Saturdays where he picks apart the news in depth for an hour and a half, which is awesome. But nice to hear him back on the reads. But further to it, there was a mention of Thurrock's MP, Jackie Doyle Price. And funnily enough, this year in my class, or just like this week with my class in year 6, we've been writing letters to our local MPs. One of the kids lives in Thurrock and is therefore writing a letter to Jackie Doyle Price. She's trying to think to improve our local area by having more like park spaces that are habitats for animals and things like this. It's a cute idea. It's a lovely idea, but just a little crossover that Jackie Doyle Price creeping into Teachers Talk Radio news. And there she was in my classroom this week as well. Funny thing, though, I have to say that the child who's writing to her actually had a bit of a conflict of conscience when writing to Jackie Doyle Price, the MP, because she basically asked me, she said, I don't really align with this person's views. I don't like, I've seen how she votes on certain things. I don't like that she votes that way. Does this mean I shouldn't write to her? She said. And I said, no, you can disagree with someone in lots of different ways, but still you can help each other out in different ways. So she's still your MP. She's still your avenue to improving the area. So still write to her. But I thought that was quite an interesting perspective from a young kid there, 11 years old, and to be worrying about the conflict of conscience when writing to your MP, asking them to help you, even though you don't agree with them on lots of things. Anyway, that's in my year 6 class, which we are now heading towards the end of their time in primary school. So it's kind of a big deal, right? And as we head towards the end of the year, every year, we try and make the best of the end of the year with the year 6s. But what's changed over the years for me is that what's asked of us personally, teachers, has changed. And in my own school, it's changed for the better. We used to, a lot of the end of year stuff was generally left to us. And so we'd be buying them, books to sign. We might buy them key rings. We might buy them food and snacks on their last days. And then I'd buy my teaching assistants presents, and I'd buy the head a present, and I'd buy my LSA's presents. I might buy my year group colleague a present as well. It adds up. It adds up when that's all put on teachers, as it often is. It's an interesting thing in teaching where this gift giving, the same way gifts to teachers, is a bit of a weird and interesting thing in the country and perhaps in the world. That isn't in many other jobs. There's this kind of end point every year, and there's these blurry expectations to get gifts. But you don't have to, but yeah, it might be frowned upon if you don't. And depending on your teacher, they may or may not expect something. It's an interesting one. Tom Rogers has just dropped it on, saying it's impressive from a year 6. Yes, the unit in general we are writing to improve our local communities is a cool unit, and hopefully they really engaged with how to improve their communities. And like I said, we're writing letters to all our MPs this week, and I've said to them I will only send the letters that have a cat's chance in hell of getting made. So I'm like that with my class. I'm quite harsh. I'll just say, look, if it's not going to persuade them, I don't want to waste their time, because then they'll just put the whole pile of letters to the side. Whereas if I just send them 2 or 3 that are good quality ideas, you never know, kids. You never know. So that's my teaching side. But yes, as we wind down towards the end of the year, it's all a little bit blurry and unknown. So let's talk about what's asked of you at the end of the year. What kind of things do you find yourself doing? What things are part of the job, and what things are, what can we say, extracurricular, right? Things that are not necessarily part of the job, but you find yourself doing every year, most years, because that's the expectation of the school, the low key, maybe unwritten expectation. Are you utterly used up by the time you get to summer? I think this year we can probably all say we're pretty used up, because it's been quite a year in that sense. But I wonder how, do you have ways of preserving your energy or getting through, or have you found ways of cutting out the nonsense, right? The gift giving thing, I'm a little bit on the fence about. Well, we've started to deal with our problems in some better ways, in that the PTA donates some money to gifts for year sixes, and then that becomes the school's gifts to them rather than teacher gifts. And so then we as teachers have agreed we're just going to basically get some snacks and have a nice little movie time on their last day, popcorn and drinks and stuff like that. And it was basically a more cost-effective way of heading towards the end of the year. Whereas previous years, you do the snacks and all of that stuff, but then also you'd buy a long-term gift, and I'd have to Amazon out these signing books and things for them to have. So what do you think about that? Should it be a normal thing for teachers to do? Should it be expected that teachers buy gifts for their kids? Doesn't that set an odd expectation if you're expected to buy gifts for your class? Say if you didn't envision that, if you usually buy gifts for your class and then this year you decide you're not going to do it, how might that be received, do you think? By colleagues, by the children, by the children's parents? Do you think it would be no big deal? Right, fine. Anyone's choice, that's fine, just move on. Or would there be an unspoken, and then what about your year group colleagues? What if the class beside you give gifts, but you don't? Well, then again, what I'm talking about is there's like an involuntary, whether you want to do it or not, it's much harder to not do it if people around you are doing it, right? You're committed to these extra things that are not part of your job. They're not things that you have to do, but you end up doing them because everybody else is. And, let's think about teachers who are financially less stable than others. People who can't afford for, 2 or 3 Christmases every year. People who, need to check their bank balance. I'm sure that's a whole lot of us. But yeah, it comes this time of year, and right, don't forget to buy the gifts. Don't forget to get stuff for your TA or your colleagues, because you don't want to insult them. And don't forget to get something for your head, because they've been working really hard. Yeah, it's true enough. And don't forget to get, little signing books for the year sixes and pens so they can sign each other's shirts. And so it goes on, so it goes on, so it goes on. Yeah, so what do you think? Here we go. Khalil is coming in. He's a secondary school teacher. He says, gifts for my kids, as in children he's teaching. No thanks. All that well-planned learning you've had this year, that's my gift to you. Love it. I think that is the way it should be. I don't think, it should be a standard. I don't want to be a Scrooge about it. I don't think it's a terrible problem in the world that teachers are getting gifts for their classes. It's nice. I get that it's nice, but it does strike me a little bit of like short term. Like they don't sit there at the end of the summer. Remember when Mr. Column gave us that gift? What a wonderful gesture. I'll carry that forward in my life and change my view on the world because I was given a gift from my teacher. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I think if a school made a rule to not give gifts, done, I don't think anyone would care. I really don't think they would. I think maybe parents would be a little bit, they'd have their backs up for a couple of parents would be a little bit moody for 1 year, and then it would become the standard, and that would be it. Obviously, and what I'm learning from Khalil there, of course, is that probably there's a big divide here, isn't there, with secondary and primary. With primary, you have your 30 kids for the whole year, and so you get to know them very well. And therefore, I think it's much more common to expect there to be gifts at the end of the year. The expect does my head in, though. That's another part that really winds me up, is I think as soon as someone expects something like that, I'm like, nah, you're not getting it. Not if you expect it. That's not, because then it's not a gift, is it? It's me just fulfilling a duty that you think I have to do. And if I'm doing it of my own will, well, now I don't want to do it. If you're saying I should do it, it defeats the whole point of doing it, I think, when it's expected. But like I say, if I didn't this year, if I decided I wasn't going to, which to be fair, in my own setting, there's not much that is asked of me now. A lot of it has been cut out and we've been helped out in lots of ways. But I still think if I was like, no, I'm not going to do something this year, I would think it would be frowned upon. Sobia says, me needs. Of course, I must come to Sobia's comment. Earlier in the week, I put out a tweet asking about end of year traditions, things we do in terms of gifts and things we give out. She had a lovely a bit of feedback. Let me come to that. She said that she often would. She doesn't get loads, and often I think that Sobia's been thinking on. If you don't mind filling in the blanks a little bit, Sobia, you can call in if you like. Sobia, talk me through your process. But she kind of puts together some lovely gifts. Worth saying, because her teachers did the same when she was younger and she thought it was lovely. So actually, my cocky little bit just then, when I said I don't think kids are going to remember at the end of summer, I should actually be careful, because Sobia did remember, and that is the reason she gives gifts now. So maybe there's something in it. Maybe there's something in it. Maybe gifts actually do have a way of having a long-term effect, but it's the type of gifts, isn't it? FOD3 says, I think cards are much nicer than a gift. And there was this element that came onto the Twitter feed as well. That was handmade gifts, making cards personalized for each child, maybe making some kind of gift item that the teacher has a skill at making. I used to have a funny thing. It wasn't really like Mr. Column thing because it was a skill of mine, I guess maybe in a way. But I used to have this thing where I would, on like the last day of term or the last couple of days of term, my mornings, I would go into our computer suite and I would like man the fleet of computers and I would hop around. There was 30 computers in there and I'd hop around every single computer burning a disk for each kid in the class. So I'd make up a folder previous to the event. I'd make up a folder with a bunch of photos, things from the year that they could remember, maybe some videos of events of the year. And then I'd go around each of the computers, I'd put a disk in each one of them. And then I'd hop around one, I'd be like, start the burn. And then to the next one, start burn, start burn, start burn. And by the time I got to the 30th computer hitting start burn, the first one had finished the burn and it popped out the disk. And then I get that one, put it in a little jacket with a personalized cover. And then the second one would pop open and I'd grab that one and put it in a little jacket. And it was this amazing, like I felt like a real mastermind of the computer suite as all the, managing 30 computers and they were all timed perfectly, popping out the little discs. But you know what, every now and again, one computer would be like, failed. And then I'd have to remember, right, that one didn't work. I have to do another one. And it was all very, very wild. But it's high energy. I tell you what, I did not get a moment those mornings. I'd be in early, I'd be out late, and it would be working. But that was, I guess, my equivalent of being that I'm a bit of a tech guy. That would be my way of making something that I knew would be kind of high quality for them. It would last as well. A lot of these kids, I hope, still have their discs. There were awkward years when I'd make these discs and some kids would say after the event, and they'd be in year 5 or year 6 the following year, is when I worked in other year groups, and they'd say, oh, the disc didn't work. I'd be like, oh man, I went off at the end of summer thinking I was this amazing teacher giving them a wonderful gift, and they went home and they didn't even work. Some of the discs maybe didn't even have anything on them. How embarrassing. So the perils of technology there. Let's have a little look at some of these comments about what we do at the end of the year. FOD said, I think cards are much nicer than a gift. Sobia, talking about her process of gift giving. I just buy at Easter or Xmas small gifts like keyring, multi-packs for savings on costs, and also pizza parties. But they bring a dish, paper plates, cups, etc. And I just fund pizza. It's a nice idea. She says cards are a brilliant idea as well. It's an interesting one that, I say with that, so when you say small gifts like keyring, multi-packs, pizza parties, that strikes me as when you're talking 30 kids, even in multi-packs, that's a lot. You can't understate keyrings. You aren't buying in multi-packs. You have to buy those individually. And again, any realistic cost of a keyring, $3.99 times 30, it's a hell of a lot. Is that 120 quid off the top of my head? I think so. Maybe let's say they're cheaper. Let's say it's $2.50 for a keyring. So that times 30 is £75. Boom, gone. Is that all right? I guess it's all right, but perhaps somebody else in your school is struggling financially, and then now they're feeling that pressure. Sophia's getting all this cool stuff for her kids. I guess I should do something like that, but I can't really afford to. Maybe there's a fallout here that we have to worry about. Photos are really special. Helen Van Riel says, Helen Van Riel is master of photo gifts, by the way. I create photo collages and add text and fun backgrounds. That's lovely. So what we get in here there's some nice personalized gifts being made, personalized cards, personalized photos, designed. The thing is, with the cards and those photos as well, you can see that element of that someone's put the effort into them. Someone sat there and designed the look of it, the layout. And so it's not just banged out a photo a bunch of times, But then again, to be fair, with the pizza parties and the parties at the end of the year, those are also, they could stylistically be personalized. That's Mrs. Iqbal's way of signing us off. That's what she does. She pulls them off really well. She puts all this effort into them, and you make them, not just, oh, here's a pizza on a plate and move on. They're kind of made into your own unique style of sign off for the kids. So listen, I think it's all great. And I'm conscious that this is sounding like I don't do gifts. I'm trying to preach from a precipice. It's absolutely not the case. I do gifts. I have done gifts for my time through teaching. I'm simply questioning the standards of it. I'm questioning whether it's kind of the rightness of it, or whether we should rethink it a little bit. That's really, I'm just putting it on the table, guys, but I'm not preaching. I'm not someone who thinks that anything's bad. I'm just kind of, I guess, be playing a bit of devil's advocate, if you allow me to. Sobi says, I do think it should come out of pastoral budgets. Yes, that's the thing. And that's what's changed for me recently. Year 6 obviously being a big one. For my first few years in year 6, it did end up being really quite expensive for myself. And I didn't have any problem with it. You know, it's all part of the job, and it was nice because the kids would really feel like excited when they're finished off. That was great. But there was the element of like, you know, you'd be up in the hundreds for sure. You know, by the end of the term, you'd definitely be up in the hundreds. You know, including all the gifts you get for different people and them at different little events they have. So now a lot of it is not subsidized, it's paid for by our PTA, and that to me strikes me as right, in terms of, as long as the PTA can afford it and they're getting the funding from whichever other school events. It strikes me as well that the school allots some of their funds or assigns some of their funding to paying off some of the year 6 gifts, because of course that's a priority of the school. The school wants to sign them off in a positive way. The school wants to make sure they go in a positive and happy way, and they're given gifts to remember their time at school. So I don't think it should come out of teacher budget, but and more so, I think it should come out of the school budget. But it doesn't always. And so there's that debate to be had. Should schools perhaps, you know, at some point in the future, should all schools basically sit around and decide how are we going to deal with this? How, you know, what's the standard as this end of year? Because it's a very blurry, murky thing. I know it's not a priority right now. I know it's not the most important thing in the universe, but I only say that from a point of privilege. I only say that because I'm not, you know, currently, this day and age, I'm not at a point where I'm sweating financial how I'm going to pay for things in year 6. However, I can guarantee you there are many teachers who are, and many teachers who are gutted about how much they're spending this year on their class, and they can't see a way around it because they're feeling pressure from other teachers. I can guarantee you that. So, you know, maybe you're one of those teachers. Call in if you are, and perhaps you have other things that you like to do at the end of the year. Call in to share. I would love to hear about all the different things that you are doing. Let's have a little look at some of these questions I have lined up for you all to think about as we head towards the end half hour of the show. Do you buy gifts for your class? What and why? The why. I don't think we've had that answered yet. Why do we buy gifts for kids at the end of a year? Why can't we kind of just say, look, you've been taught, you have learned. I have done my job wonderfully as a teacher. You are now more developed than you were 9 months ago. Go forth into the sunset with the gift of knowledge. Surely that is a good thing. That is what we're asked of. You know, when I come out the doctors, I don't give them a gift and say, thanks for my diagnosis. You've done a great job. See you this time next year, or hopefully not. You know, and he doesn't give me a gift. He doesn't say, you've been a great patient. Thanks for accepting the advice I've given you and following up the appointment as you were meant to. It doesn't happen in other jobs. You know, after I go to the bank, maybe I should give gifts. Maybe I should. Do you guys give gifts to bank tellers or to, you know, to accountants and things like this? I guess maybe I do. I tell a lie. I have given gifts to people in hospitals before, but that was like when my kid was born and stuff. You know, I gave them all, like, I don't know. There was a Costa coffee place in the thing, so I got them like a £50 thing to spend on it with their little crew in the ward. It wasn't that much, but it was a little something to say thanks. So I guess there are those equivalents, but that's a lot more important. You know, helping my wife give birth to a child and coping with that, you know, and the fallout of the next few days afterwards and all the stress and worry. You know, that's very different. I think that does deserve more of a reward. Teaching, I think we do our job as standard. You know, I don't know. You tell me. Like I say, I'm arguing against myself here because I give gifts. So I'm not having a go. I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions to you all. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and the joy of me asking questions is that you can respond to those. This is not a rhetorical place, guys. If you want to respond to these questions, you can get on the Podbean app, click the round grey icon and call in. And I would love to hear from you and what you think about this whole thing about gift giving at the end of the year. I'd love to hear your views. Maybe you are somebody who does not give gifts. Maybe you have decided, maybe colleagues in your school do, and you said that's not for me. Or more interestingly, perhaps, maybe colleagues don't, right? Say a standard secondary school, colleagues are not giving gifts, but you decided, you know what? I'm giving gifts for this reason, and I would love to hear that reason. So on the Podbean app, you can drop comments live on the air, and I can respond to those live on the air, or you can call in and we can talk one-to-one about your thoughts on the matter. I'd love to hear from you. All views welcome. Okay, I promise I will not attack you. I will question, maybe, but I won't call you out for however you choose to teach. I respect your approach, whatever it may be. Look, we are coming up to the hour of 12, coming up to our afternoon today on Sunday. I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday. What a hot day. I'm not going to lie to you, in a rather grim twist to the show, I am sweating in my studio right now. It is boiling. It's boiling, isn't it? But it's nice to be boiling. I'm a sun lover. Saying that in my little black studio here under the stairs, where literally not a cinch of sunlight gets in. I am a sun lover, so I never turn away. For me, it's never too hot. In fact, I roll my eyes when people say, "Oh, it's too hot," because those are the same people who moan when it's raining. And I'm like, look, pick your lane, guys. You gotta enjoy some bit of weather. You can't moan when it's hot, moan when it's cold, and moan when it's in the middle. For me, it's sun all the way. And if there's sun, I will be happy and I will not complain. Love it, love it, love it. So yeah, very much good times in that sense, and hopefully we'll have a lovely summery finish to our school years. But like I say, we're coming up to the hour of 12, so we are going to have the news, going to have a quick word from our advertisers, and then maybe we'll have a little bit of Graham Shame. I'm not sure if I have one. Oh no, I do. All right, Graham Shame will come up after that. So enjoy the news, enjoy a quick word from our advertisers, and then we'll talk back on our end of year routines. We're not quite talking gifts in the next part of the show. We are talking, hold on, let me find my little thing. End of year do. End of year do. Are you doing a get together this year? That's what we're talking as we move towards the end of the show. Here's the news with the original, the unchanging, the stoic Tom Hopkins Burke. I don't think that's the right adjective. Anyway, Tom Hopkins Burke with the news. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke.
This is your weekend Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke. The leader of the Association of School and College Leaders has warned that children will be kept off school in the final days of term to avoid having to self-isolate during the summer holidays. Jeff Barton said that parents should send their children to school in the last days of the summer term, despite the potential for self-isolation to interfere with family holidays. More than 830,000 children were out of school last week for COVID-related reasons, the highest figure since schools returned to face-to-face learning on the 8th of March. The retailer School Uniform Direct has told customers to order soon because of COVID-related production and transport delays. Disruption in overseas factories, a shortage of shipping containers, and the impact of Brexit has led the clothing firm to experience major production interruptions. While School Uniform Direct placed orders for this year's back-to-school season as far back as last autumn, 30% of deliveries are yet to arrive on time. Matthew Easter, co-chair of the Schoolwear Association, said that the industry should be able to clothe children as normal in time for the new school year. A Conservative MP was reportedly asked to leave a secondary school question and answer session after claiming that the Black Lives Matter movement was a Marxist idea. Jackie Doyle-Price, MP for Thurrock, was said to have caused an uproar when she refused to support Black Lives Matter. The incident, which according to a parent took place during a school assembly, led to the students being sent back to their room. Around half of the children at the school are believed to be from a black background. That was your weekend Teachers Talk Radio News with Tom Hopkins Burke.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Well, just hot off the press, we were talking earlier about Boris and Rishi, who initially they were around the health secretary who's tested positive for COVID. And so it was initially said they were going to take part in a trial, which meant they could still perform their regular duties in the world, and they would just test daily. And it was, so what we discussed earlier was a different set of rules for them than there are for others, and that wasn't a good thing. However, just on the Twitterverse right now, I've logged on, and immediately the news is that they've actually reversed that, and they are no longer going to do that. They are going to isolate as normal, as the rest of us have. So, funnily, the way, see, that for me, I'd be happy with that. Yeah, they are doing the normal thing we all have. They're going through the same process. That sounds good. That should have been how it was to begin. But looking past that, they made the right decision in the end. Rishi Sunak's tweet to the world is, while the test and trace pilot is fairly restrictive, allowing only essential government business, I recognise that even the sense that the rules aren't the same for everyone is wrong. To that end, I'll be self-isolating as normal and not taking part in the pilot. So that was an hour ago he texted that out. So that I'm happy with that. I'd go, all right, crack on. But funnily, the reason I came to see this news is because somebody had retweeted it saying, well, this just shows the level of contempt which the government holds academic medical trials. So interesting. I was there of the view that most people probably want them to conform to normal rules that we've all gone through. And here we are. The immediate response to them going by the normal rules that we all go by is that they're neglecting the need for medical trials now. You can't do right for wrong. I guess this is show business, people. This is politics. So what's your views on that? If you have any views to share, should they be self-isolating with the rest of us? Should they be doing medical trials because medical trials are needed? Who knows, man? I can't keep up with the views of this world. I just thought them doing the same thing we all do made some good sense. Anyway, we have just passed the hour of 12. We're about 12:05 now. Heading into the last 25 minutes of the show. It's time for my favorite part of the show. Graham's Shame. Yes, indeed. It's time for Graham's Shame, the part of the show. I tell you something bad I've done in my life so you can feel better about the things that you've done in your life. All right. The idea is I'm going to tell you something rubbish I've done, and you guys go, wow, I didn't do that. I'm getting on better, and that's good, and you feel good about your lives. Or you did do something equally as rubbish, and then you go, wow, somebody else did something just as bad. I'm not alone. And we move on in the world happily in each other's company. So it's my little thing I like to do every week at around 12 o'clock. Graham's Shame, the shame of my life, bared out for you all to enjoy. The one this week, though, I must say, is not terribly shameful. It's more of a question to you guys. The question is it shameful? All right. It may be, actually. Now I think about saying it out loud on here, I think maybe it is shameful. So yesterday, this is hot off the press, this one, right? Brand new, Graham's Shame. Yesterday, I was on a little walk around a park. And during that barbecue, I thought I'd go on a little walk with my little man. I was carrying him in my arm, walking along, and there was some kids playing football. Kids probably around 11, 12 years old, probably start of secondary school or end of primary school, kicking a football around. Basically, one of the kids, a kid kicks the ball to another, and the other kid lets it go past me and is like, oh, you're getting that. And then he really goes off at this kid. That's, oh, I really hate you, you know. I didn't even want to invite you round, blah, blah, blah. Properly going off like really deep, mean stuff to this kid. And the other kid was clearly from what I saw of it anyway, was just being nice. Like he went to get the ball. He didn't really respond when the kid was being mean. He didn't swear at him. The first kid swore at him, but the kid who was being attacked didn't say anything back. I was looking at him like, Lordy, like that's mean. And I guess my empathy levels as well were just like I was remembering when I was in school and those types of kids and how they would say that stuff and it would affect the one who was being had a go at. It would affect him a lot more than it seemed to affect the one who was being mean. I just think this isn't right, man. This isn't right. So I stood there for a moment, little boy in my arm, and I was thinking, should I say something? What should I do? Do you say anything? Maybe it's not really my place to. Maybe this is just what kids do. Maybe I should just leave them to it. Anyway, the one kid kind of starts kind of acting like he's storming off with a football under his arm, and the one who's being mean, he kind of passes where I am, and I just had a little word with him. Is that bad? I said to him, what did I say to him? Something like, it was very tame. I didn't like have a go at him. I feel like I should have said more, actually. I should have really gone for him. But I said to him, you were in the wrong in that situation. And then he looked at me with a little smile. And I said, and just going off like that, something like that. And then rolled my eyes. I don't know, roll my eyes or something went off. I didn't roll my eyes, but a kind of you're in the wrong. It's not cool that you went off at your mate like that, kind of thing. And then I walked off from there. So it was a little thing. It was a little thing. I just thought, it's my little bit for that guy, that kid who just didn't deserve to have that kid have a go at him. The one who was having a go as well. He was one of these really well kept, cute kind of kids, and you think, I just bet he's gotten away with loads. I bet teachers think he's really sweet. He's very well maintained, lovely, perfect hair and all this. And I thought, that's not cool, man. That's not cool just to go off at someone. So I had to go at a kid. All right. That's my shame this week. How do you judge it? Is it shameful? Should random adults have a little word with kids in those situations? Or should we leave it and go, kids are kids. They have to go through their experience as kids. Let them do it. Do you think that was okay? Or is it up there with the other shames? You tell me. Helen Van Riel, loving the vibe. She has said, yes, Graham. And I'm just feeling that energy because I think I needed that. I think I needed a little bit of affirmation that it was okay to have a go at the kid. I didn't have a go at all. I didn't shout or raise my voice or swear or anything like that. It was just that's not cool, man. You just had a massive go at him. And he got it, he got it. And then we left it there and that was fine. So Seema also says, definitely okay. I'm loving this. I'm loving it. I'm feeling good about the choice here. Helen Van Riel also says, the best part of it is the kid who was bearing the brunt of the other kid saw you standing up for him. That will sit with him. Yeah, I don't know that he did. I don't know that he definitely did. They were it was a big park we were in, and the one who was had a go at was further away from me. I hope he did, though. I think he probably did. He's probably like, why the hell is that tall guy talking to my mate or my ex-mate? Who knows? It was so mean, the stuff he was saying, though. Oh, I didn't want to invite you round. That would sit with me. And then another comment says, yes, it takes a village. Loving it, guys. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Thank you very much. All right. So not shameful this week. Just, what I was worried about was I had to question myself afterwards when I said to my wife, I thought, am I turning into one of those miserable old men who's shouting at clouds? Do you know what I mean? Am I going to be one of these ones in a couple of weeks? I'll be shouting at a bin or something. But it sounds like, judging from the Teachers Talk Radio listeners' responses, I did the right thing. So this week, it was not Graham's shame. There you go. And I must say, I'm proud that you're here, Helen Van Riel, in the comments and taking part, because you said a while ago, I think one of the first shows, you said, how about, a positive version of Graham's shame, Graham's pride or something. Doesn't rhyme, so it wouldn't work. But, there you go. That's a bit of a positive version of Graham's shame, just for you, Helen Van Riel. So there you go. There you go. Possibly turning into an old man who shouts at clouds. That's me, Graham Columb. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm Graham Column VO, and you can hear about more adventures in my life. Although I have to say, I don't do lots on Twitter. I'm a little bit, I probably will at some point, maybe in the summer. Who knows? Maybe I'll do some low-key Graham shames on there. Who knows? I don't know. Anyway, thank you for that. That was Graham Shame. Let's move on then to the discussion. We have been talking about end of year standards and what we do at the end of year in our schools. This year, I have Helen Van Riel has commented, Graham's fame. I love it. I love it. That is what we should move on to. Once I'm out of shame, if I am ever out of shame, I'll move on to Graham's fame. And I can talk about all kinds of stuff. Good things I've done. Brushes with famous people. I have a few of those, which actually one of them could also be a Graham shame. So I'll line that up for next week, maybe. That involves Ian Wright, a classic British footballer. Let's see about coming to that next week. Anyway, So things that are asked of you at the end of the year, gifts that you do. I was talking about how it really adds up for many people. They have to get gifts because we get gifts for kids. Might be a £5 each. That's going to add up to a lot. Snacks, we might get them at the end of the day. Little sweets that we think is only a little bit, but it adds on to the bill. Gifts for TAs, gifts for LSAs, maybe a wine for your head teacher to say, great job, you've gotten through the year really well. That adds up and adds up. And like I said earlier, that's getting into your hundreds for some people. We can't all afford to be spending hundreds every time we hit summer holidays. So what do we think about this whole standard of giving gifts at the end of the year? Maybe you don't give gifts, or maybe you've just started giving gifts, or maybe others in your school don't give gifts, but you do. What's your thoughts? If you want to talk about it, if you have a stance you'd wish to share, this is Teachers Talk Radio, which means you can call in and talk about your view on the matter now. You can do it live on the air on Sunday afternoon. So other things to think about. Oh, here's some fun ideas before I move on. Some fun other ideas people had for end of year stuff. We talked about some already. We talked about people putting together stationery packs, people doing a pizza party for their kids, personalizing cards and personalizing photos as unique ways of signing off the end of the year, being a bit more personal and maybe cutting down on the cost a little bit, which can be quite overwhelming for some. And here's some other things that I'm aware some people have done. One school gave a book to all their year sixes. They gave a Roald Dahl book to all the year sixes. I think it was Fantastic Mr. Fox. I might be mistaken. But how did I come to discover that? It was a Twitter post complaining about it, saying, is this an insult to my kids' reading standard? Like, wow, it's a gift. They're giving you a free book to continue your journey of learning with a classic from the archives. And the response was negative from this one parent anyway. And that's all it takes, to spoil the thing. From my point of view, you could have 29 parents love it, but you're going to remember the one who goes, how dare you give me this? I can't believe you give me this poor standard of book. But to be fair, the teacher was a little bit self-aware when they put out the tweet, or it wasn't a teacher. The parent was quite self-aware. They did say, oh, am I being too harsh? Do I need to just be grateful they're doing anything? To which I'd say, yes, just be grateful, take the gift, enjoy, and off you go. Of course, you can give them class photos, cards, as we said already. Yearbooks are sometimes paid for, special movie days. You could give them each a movie, maybe each one of your own favorite movies you could share with your class if you're a big movie person. Key rings have been mentioned, hoodies have been mentioned. Now they'd add up to a lot, wouldn't they? That'd be putting a lot of pressure on your colleagues if you're giving out hoodies to all your kids. An ice cream parlor was an amazing idea. And actually, I'm not going to lie, when I was going to bed last night or when I was waking up this morning, I started thinking, could we do that? Could we pull that off in our school? Really like the idea of an ice cream parlor. So not just the ice creams themselves, but you could have all the different toppings and hundreds and thousands and, Maltesers and flakes, and they could enjoy the wonders of ice cream in school for a day. That would be cool. I'd be well up for that. So again, costly, not simple. I'm not going to lie. I knocked the idea on the head once I thought about it a little bit because it was too complicated. But it's a lovely idea, isn't it? I'm sure it wouldn't be that complicated. Just maybe you organise for an ice cream van to come up at a certain point. TA or adults could go down and pick them up. And then, you have all the extra stuff in class. Bosh, off you go. Ice cream party. Really like that one. Maybe next year I'll go with that one. Love it. And here's one that I had in recent years. This was one I thought was rather clever, but maybe it's rather selfish. You tell me. What I did a couple of years ago when it was a Christmas break, bear in mind it was Christmas, not end of the year. That does matter. I invested in a sense. I got some board games for the class and games they could play together in wet play and on the game day. So when you have at the end of the term on, in primary schools, mostly in the UK, I think, when it's your last day before Christmas and the last day before you split up for summer, you basically have a DOS day where they bring in toys, they play games and stuff like that. So I bought a couple of board games and interactive things. I think it was some putty and a Jenga type of thing. One of those Bop It toys as well. And the cool thing about it is that for them, they were new toys. So they felt like a Christmas to them. We were receiving toys. They could unwrap them and play with them. They could also use them together. So it was a social thing for them as a class to bond and have fun with. And it all worked really well. First time I did it, the kids were super excited. They really enjoyed them. And I was really glad with it. And then also it doesn't go to waste entirely because then they stay in the class beyond. So all the rest of the year, when there's wet play, they get to use them. And then they stay in the classroom at the end of the year. So then future kids can enjoy them as well. And that to me seemed like I was spending about the same amount that I usually did, but it was more meaningful. And it kind of stuck around, and it was more worth the spend in terms of for my classroom and for the long term. But maybe that's a little bit selfish. The second year I did it, which is going back a while now, it just didn't seem to go down as well. Kids just didn't seem that fussed. It was a little bit like, oh, all right. Like, I feel like they probably, because I was more aware that it might seem selfish. I think they were a bit more like, maybe that's kind of just for you, Mr. Column. I don't know. What do you think for those gifts? I thought initially it was a great idea, and then something happened the second time I did it. They just weren't as enthused. They were just a little bit over it, and I think they just saw through it a little bit. So there you go. Those are some other versions of end of year gifts to think about. So there we go. End of year do then. Last thing to talk about. We're heading into the last kind of 12 minutes of the show now. End of year do. Are you doing your end of year get together as a staff is what I'm talking about. Forget the kids. Leave them out for a bit, all right? We can have 15 minutes not thinking about the kids, all right? Get over it. Come on. I want you to think about what's going on for your end of year. Are you doing a get together with your staff? Have you had a get together? Was it outdoors? Have you had to knock the whole thing on the head because it's not been possible this year because of COVID? Did somebody make a decision early on and think this isn't worth the risk? Because obviously the real risk of it is you all get together as a staff, you have a lovely knees up. Day later, somebody tests positive for COVID, and then the whole staff having to isolate. The whole school is shut down for the last few days of term. End of year spoilt, right? So what did you do this year? What was your end of year do? My own school, unfortunately, have knocked it on the head because we initially were going to have a get together outside where it was going to be all the TAs and teachers would be outside. We'd bring your own snacks, bring your own drinks. It was just that we were going to be in the space together to wind down. But it was knocked on the head because there was some reason that a bunch of people couldn't make it. People were busy. When we first agreed the date, that then was ruled out because there was something where, leadership had to organize something and they couldn't be there. And then on another date, the teaching assistants and LSAs couldn't be there for whatever reason. And so it was knocked on the head. So this year at my school, there has been no end of year sign off for staff, which is a little bit sad. And I have to say, I feel socially really distant from many of my fellow staff members this year. So it's a bit of a weird one. Usually you have that lovely bit of togetherness before you break up. Even often we've had it in the past, it would be at break time. They just get a bunch of snacks and food and drinks in. We'd all come together at break. There'd be a few speeches, cards given out to certain people. Maybe people going on, people are moving on to different jobs or people going away for a period of time. They'd all be kind of signed off in a lovely, positive way. And then we'd go off into our summer happily, and in a togethery kind of way. Whereas now that doesn't seem to, this year that hasn't happened. And I think it's a shame. I think it won't quite feel like the end of the year as much because there won't be a staff get together, just that kind of mutual winding down and switching off and allowing it, So that's what's going on there. What's going on in your schools? I'd love to hear what has gone on, past tense, or what will be going on in your schools for the staff. Is there anything for the staff? Are you being signed off in some way? Are you being together? All those staff who you haven't seen all year, perhaps if you work in the junior part of the building, you haven't seen the infants, or maybe vice versa, or maybe if you work in the foundational reception area and you haven't seen the year 1s and 2s for a while, or whichever, if you've been segregated away from people because of COVID, are you going to get to see them and sign them off, or are you just hoping to say bye at some point this week? It's a shame, isn't it? It's a weird one this year. But what do you usually do? We went through a few phases of different things. Many years ago, we would book a meal in a place, whatever restaurant. We'd all go there of an evening, usually the week before we break up. We'd be there till late and it would all be good fun. And then the fuss of where we would eat and who could be there and all of that got so complicated. They started to think, well, why not just have it in school? Still bring all the meals, still bring all the drinks, get a DJ in, use the space that's there. And then we basically had some parties in not the main school hall, but one of the other school halls, which was a bit more suited to it. And it was really fun, I have to say. That was a really good move. It was less stress to organize. It was less fuss to organize getting there because we weren't going to some random restaurant in the middle of the countryside. We just go to our normal place. And it was really good. Yeah, so I liked that step to a more casual end of year do. But what about you? Do you really overdo it in your place? Do they go hard? Maybe that's where all your PTA money is spent on your end of year do in a slightly, if your boss is somewhat David Brentish or, you know, try to get the popularity points with the staff members. Who knows? How do you sign off your end of year? One year we had a meal at this weird, it was like a club, and they had a Michael Jackson impersonator. It was all very uncomfortable. And the person had like plastic surgery so that they looked more like Michael Jackson. And it didn't work well. It was just like I don't know, it was a bit Bo Selector. It was a bit nightmarish. It wasn't great. So I wouldn't advise. He did really get I guess the best thing or the worst thing was that he was a really good impersonator. You know, the music was great and his dance moves were bang on, but you couldn't take your eyes off the look, which wasn't great. But then again, I guess Michael Jackson himself didn't look great towards the end of his time. So maybe that was accurate as well. Probably get myself in a little bit of trouble there. Who knows? Who knows? Tell me about your end of year stuff. This is Teachers Talk Radio, a live and interactive platform where you can call in and tell me exactly what you think about any of the things we've been discussing. We have been talking end of year standards. What are you doing to sign off your kids? Are you having to spend lots of your own money? Are you comfortable spending lots of your own money at the end of the year? Or is it uncomfortable? Do you wish it was different? Has your school made a rule that you don't give gifts? Or maybe they made a rule that you do give gifts. Maybe they simply leave you to it and look away. And then there's an awkward kind of competition between staff members. And then I've also been talking about the end of year do. Have you had an end of year do this year? Are you looking forward to it? Has it been cancelled because of COVID, amongst the many other things cancelled because of COVID? How is it looking for you? On Teachers Talk Radio, you can interact live. And in fact, I've got to tell you about something you need to do. All right, listener, something you need to do. It's a duty. No, it's not a duty. All right, let me move on to that for a moment. We'll come back to this if we can. So there is a thing known as the British Podcast Awards. Okay, you're listening to a podcast right now, although you are lucky enough to listen to it live. So Teachers Talk Radio is a bit special in that it goes out live on a Sunday. Well, for me, it's on a Sunday afternoon. It goes out live throughout the week. We have schedules of shows all the time. But yeah, we go out live through the week, but then following that, we then put the shows out as a podcast. So you can come back and listen to them all the time. So if you enjoy Graham Shame, you can go back and listen to all the other Graham Shames as well after this. So that's what Teachers Talk Radio is. And so it is a podcast in that sense. And there are these things called British Podcast Awards. Now, this is my appeal to you. If you've listened to a few shows and you love it, or maybe you've just listened to this show and you thought, wow, my life has changed. This host is unbelievable. I want to vote him into an award. Not him. You're voting the station. All right, guys, don't worry. Don't worry. You're not going to be boosted my ego personally. But I'm not going to lie. If anything did come of it, I would take 1% of an ego boost from anything good happening with Teacher Talk Radio. BritishPodcastAwards.com. All right, BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. Right, get on there, type in Teachers Talk Radio, give us a vote, and who knows? This time next year, we'll all be millionaires. That's a joke. Of course, there is no profiting from this vehicle. We are here because we love to be here. We like to host and chat and talk to teachers of the UK. So, but there is that award, which would be really great if we could get our name up in there. I got to say, I'm super, super proud of Teachers Talk Radio. We've been here since February and we have gone through all kinds. We have such great hosts, so many different hosts and guests as well. We had amazing guests and people lined up. I always want to say about people we have lined up as guests, but I won't because it's not my place and I don't want to spoil surprises for other hosts. But we have great hosts. We have a great timetable of shows. After me today, we're going on to Khalil Rouse, who is on from 1. And he is amazing. If you haven't heard him, now listen, anybody in the room, I don't care if you know me personally or if you just happen to switch on because you love Teachers Talk Radio, listen to Khalil Rouse at 1. He is amazing. Such a good show. Last week's show was amazing. I always listen to it after the show because after I do my show, I wander off and do stuff. I usually go to Tesco's and things like this. But then after the event, I listen back to it and it's so great. And so many times I listen back and I think, I wish I listened to that live because I want to comment on things. Khalil Rouse, his voice is also amazing. So Teachers Talk Radio, BritishPodcastAwards.com/vote. Get on it, please. We appreciate every vote. And every vote you send in goes directly to our hearts. I don't know what to say about that. It doesn't go literally to our hearts. It goes into a digital database. But we would be grateful and be very happy and made up if you could do that for us. And maybe just love it. I hope you just love it. I know I got a little band of listeners that check in regularly. Thank you, Helen Van Riel, and many others. Seema's always on here. Khalil's great to listen. Khalil, you always stun me with the fact that you are happy to come in and listen to me when I know you got your show immediately afterwards. If you say I'm far too kind, you're far too kind for listening and taking part. So good times. Get on with that Teachers Talk Radio podcast voting if you can. If not, enjoy your Sunday. Have a great one. Always and forever, he says. Funny you say always and forever, Khalil. Is that a deliberate reference to anything? Because I asked many, many weeks ago, there's this tune I play, right? I'm going to play it now. I'm doing a little dance. Of course. How can you not? Now, the question I ask sometimes after I play that jingle is I say, where's it from? It's from a movie. But what movie is it from? Now, Khalil has just said in the comments, always and forever. And I'm wondering if that is also a reference to the same movie. So I ask you, Khalil, what movie are you referencing when you say always off and forever? Or is it just generally you're saying the comment always and forever? He's just saying the comment always and forever. Dang. All right. Well, the mystery remains then. Anybody who can figure out the movie for that beautiful tune, you will get a virtual, socially distanced pat on the head from me if you can figure out what movie it's from. I've had one person figure it out, and they didn't do it. They didn't figure it out live on the air. It was my brother, and he texted me saying he knew what it was. But I'd love it if somebody less close to me than my brother could figure it out, because it's a little bit obscure. It's kind of not so obscure that it's actually obscure, but it's the kind of thing that some people will think is obscure, but it's not really obscure. All right. Can you tell we're heading towards the end of the show? Look, it is the end of your year. I hope you are heading towards a lovely long summer of kicking back. I hope your holidays aren't in too much jeopardy because of the COVID unknown, PCR tests and all that. I hope you just manage to wind down. Like I said, I need a haircut, a shave. I need to mow the lawn. I need to get my life in order. I got to get my house in order generally. But that's all on hold until I sign the kids off on Wednesday. Then it's the big wind down. So I hope you are already on the wind down, or you're really close to being on the wind down. Certainly, by the time I get back here next Sunday, I hope you are fully wound down and off from school and enjoying the start of your summer. You know what? My personal thing is that there's nothing better than the first Sunday of the summer holidays. It's the absolute best point in my year, apart from maybe my birthday and Christmas or something, because the start of the summer just all rolls out in front of you. There's so much open days, so many open days, so much possibility of all the things you can do. No worries about, and also the first Sunday in the summer holidays is also really close to payday if you get paid at the end of the month. So that's always helps as well. So next time I'm on the air, I'm going to be rejoicing in the summeriness of being off school. I hope you will too. Enjoy your last weeks. Look after yourselves. Don't feel that pressure from fellow teachers to buy loads of stuff if you don't want to. Just you do you and own it. And I promise you, like Khalil said earlier, the bottom line, if you taught them good stuff, if you've done your job as a teacher, there is no greater gift than the gift of knowledge. You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio. Now listen, if you are getting all your kids loads of gifts, right, then just don't spend too much.